Whew, I got some of my exercise going for the final 2 days of the game. Hey, what is up ladies and gentlemen, I'm Silver the Hedgehog here, and I'm from the likes of the Maxi Toys videos, as to be expected at this point. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Rayman, Raving, Rabbids for the Nintendo Wii, and also for the PlayStation 2, as well as Xbox 360, and finally for the PC. So, last time we have managed to able to done the next set of minigames ranging from the forms of the actual between 2 days, once again, which there are day number 12, and also day number 13. So for now, we're going to be hit on to, well, I would say by the forms of the final 2 days in this entire Let's Play of the forms of Rayman, Raving, Rabbids. So even then, and as far as this point in time, we've only got about final 10 minigames left until the actual Let's Play of this game will be fully completed. So even then, after we're done with all that stuff though, then again, the only thing I'm probably not going to show off is the score attack mode, just because it's pretty much the same thing, but with the forms of the score-based system, which you can able to actually get more points throughout, but seemingly to say I'm probably not going to tackle for that mode. So anyways, let's begin with the first minigame in day 14, and this is a new one actually. Bunny's Articulus, showing at least 950 points by getting the bunny to repeat the actual pattern. Think of like Simon Says, but in the actual Rabbids brain, as you can clearly see on screen. But the only major difference is throughout is the fact that, well, usually relatively speaking, that the game will actually tell you what you're supposed to press, rather than just like following the exact same order. But even then though, it always kind of reminds me of Simon Says for some reason, except, well, you have to do it in a different order or something like that. And that could be also same applies for the memory kind of minigame. So this is still pretty much a memorization minigame, except unlike the defaults of how it does it on the have no memory minigame between 2 parts. This particular minigame itself, it just feels kind of weird to me though. I don't know, something about the actual the minigame itself feels a little bit too, I don't know, odd to me. Like for instance, the actual Rabbid itself, along with the actual 4 different colored brains, which that actually represents 4 symbols, which is of course between those 2 weapons, as well as the actual laughter and even the actual eyes. I don't know, it just kind of creeps me out at points. But then again though, it was just there for the sake of the forms of the minigame compilations and stuff. So even then though, then again, you need to aim for about 950 points to able to actually just to pass this particular minigame, and as soon as you reach it, then you would able to accomplish it no problem. So even then though, yeah, that's what I can really think about it. Seriously though, that particular design of that rabbit with 4 different brains, I don't know, I really keep on feeling like nitpicking with that specific design though, but even then I felt incredibly bad for him sometimes. But it was there for the sake of the forms of the minigame itself, rather than just in the actual game itself, but that's probably just me. Anyway, so the next minigame we have on day number 14, and that is, since these loading screens has been done, Bunnies Don't Use Toothpaste Part 2, which is basically it's the same thing as the first part, but except now, during the forms of the minigame itself, I believe we've now come across into the actual different visual standpoints. Specifically, we've now come across into ourselves the actual smelly breath effects on here, as well as some different effects were able to happening if you managed able to see, you know, some gross breathing and stuff like that. So that's the only major differences between part 1 and 2 of this minigame. But apart from everything else though, is the fact that the actual, excuse me, apart from the fact that the entire goal of this minigame is pretty much exactly the same as the first part, that we need to still aim for about 1 minute or something like that. So even then though, as long as you keep on pulling out all the actual drill worms, then you should be able to do it just fine. So even then though, that way you can able to actually get used to with that, even though you have to be on precisely on depth perception, because if you're somehow trying to able to actually be at the wrong angle while pressing the A button, sometimes though it always throws me off a little bit. But either way though, let's just let one of the two were able to get badly damaged until, let's just say, enjoy right about now, because even then though we actually spent about almost a whole minute, so even then though, it looks incredibly disturbing too. Even especially noticeable when there was like gum showing up, or even especially noticeable with how the fact that, well, these worms still manage to come out of the Rabbids' gum, which either way, I still find that very disturbing, I have to be honest here. Anyways though, so that does it for that particular minigame, and now I think we're going to be moving on to the next minigame, which, sure enough, I think we have not seen that particular, well, I don't know about you, but either way though, let's just dive right into this for the sake of this next minigame, so let's see what we have. Bunnies Can't Fly Part 2, where basically, it's kind of like the same thing as in the first part, except now we have a different goal to reach this time by simply aim for 200 meters, rather than 120 if I could recall. And also another huge difference too, that he now managed to got himself the actual bomb, so this means, if assuming he's managed able to launch in the air, basically we're gonna have to like, keep on waggling the Wiimote and nunchuck just like so, and then if you manage to able to let him go fly, press the B button until you're able to actually get yourselves a second opportunity so that you can able to reach to 200 meter distances. So yeah, it's a little bit easier than the first part, I feel like, probably because of how the fact that basically I just know exactly what this actually represents for. So even then, once again, we now actually access to the next boss minigame of some sort of, and also, but, well, there's not much else you can say about it. So either way though, still a lot of fireworks has been showing up. You know, sometimes I will admit though right away, is the fact that, usually relatively speaking, because of how the fact that sometimes, every time when we move on to the next screen or something like that, specifically whenever we get back into the actual room after this though, then sometimes the actual characters can outright disappear for about a split second. But anyways. Okay. Here's how it's gonna be for this point, folks. This is gonna be the successful attempt on this minigame. The only reason being for that, I'm pretty suck at this minigame now. Well, the only reason being for that is because we still have the exact same song as before. Like, for instance, that ever since, I would say since, I think I actually lost count actually because of how the fact that it has been quite a few days since I actually last touched upon this. But basically in this minigame right here, even though it's the same thing as usual, however, what makes things a lot harder than before is the fact that, my god, my timing on this minigame can outright becomes terrible. Like, specifically because whenever we get onto the fastest points during this minigame, sometimes I always get myself screwed over, and if you keep on missing, you'll lose 2 points every time you miss. So even then, definitely one of the hardest dancing minigames I've ever played. It always kind of reminds me of Dance Dance Revolution game on super hard difficulty, as well as Guitar Hero and Rock Band Master or very hard difficulties, because, you know, you have to be dead on with, not only for the sake of the timing on the notes, but also the fact that, I swear to god, my motion controls wasn't exactly precise, which even then, it attempts to really bug the hell out of me whenever I did manage to play this multiple times, and I did seriously failed multiple times, and as a result, I almost got myself my rage quit on this for the sake of this minigame alone. So as a result, I don't think that anyone can although I'm pretty sure anyone else can beat it, but for me, it's so unbeatable, because no matter what, how many times I was able to actually do a correct timing with those little Rabbids notes, but most of the time, I keep on missing, and I keep on getting my red full bar, and as a result, although you still need to aim for 750 points to able to pass this minigame, but the ultimate challenge of this particular version of this minigame is to try to succeed, which, believe me, it's not as easy as it looks, especially on the fastest points. Thankfully, in the first, the first 2 parts and the 5th part, this actually goes down pretty easily. But luckily for me this time around, I've simply managed to pass this. I mean, seriously. This particular dancing minigame, go to hell. Go to hell for this particular Raving hard kind of part 2 scenario. But either way though, that's so mind-numbing. But anyway, now we're done with that at least, so even then though, let's go ahead and move on to the actual boss minigame right now. So hopefully, in addition to able to noticing for this, we've now got ourselves, I would say this is the final song on the jukebox, so even then, you can able to listen to that as much as you want, so even then though, let's move on to the final minigame on day number 14, which is Bunnies Like a Good Cowboy Race, which is actually the final racing minigame. Kind of thing about it. Because of that though, it's gonna take place in a western, wild western kind of vibe to it. So even then though, I think simply to say that this track is gonna be super short. Like, literally short, because I could definitely say that, because, well, we'll explain more about it whenever we get onto the actual course itself, or even the actual minigame as of now. So, yeah, there's not much else I can really think about it, and I don't think, yeah, it's not necessary to go there, so I think what they expect the actual thing itself is to tell me that this particular course is basically like a figure 8, so I guess that makes it obvious for that specific track layout. So yeah, let's try this again, and hopefully we'll able to actually succeed for this point. Although, gotta think about it though, is the fact that one thing I did not actually realize, that it doesn't matter what position you're in, it's to be more accurately, you have to beat a certain amount of time before you're able to actually just to win this particular minigames like so. It doesn't really matter if you came like first, second, or anything like that. I just realized that to this point, because this track can get pretty tricky at times, especially that you have to deal with the forms of the figure 8 kind of track layout, especially how the fact that we're always going up and around and around and around kind of scenarios like this, and as a result, yeah, the only matter of time for this minigame, as you can tell, is of course the actual time itself, rather than just what position you're in. So even then though, because as you can tell, I'm actually ended up on 2nd place, but that's fine by me, because either way, we have managed to able to, well, succeed for the actual time beat. So even then, not too shabby and not too difficult either. So even then though, oh, looks like I got myself, got a new subscriber, which is usually calls it Cartoon Fan 2002. Okay, that seems quite a logical side of things. So, yeah, but then again though, we're actually doing pretty well with subscribers count. I think that's the only reason that we're doing so well at this point. So, anyways, that's the 14th plunger in the game, so not too shabby for the most part. And from now on, we're now on to the final day, which is day number 15, and this will be the final time we're going to be seeing this particular moment, where we're going to be slowly walking towards the actual stadium itself, and then we're able to tackle through the final 5 mini-games of how this game offers us to. So either way, excuse me again, I do sorry about this for this point, folks, but either way though, here we are now, onto the stadium for the final portion of it, especially noticeable, as I said before, we're going to be taking on the forms of the final 5 minigames, specifically final 4, as well as the final boss minigame of the entire main package. So either way, let's get to it from the beginning, starting with on minigame number 1 on day 15, which is bunnies can only fly downwards, which I think we've technically already done this before, since during, I would say, in day 9 if I recall, but except the fact that, well, it might actually plays out exactly the same thing as how it does it from last time. So even then, not much anything else different around here, apart from the fact that it's managed to show up from the start, instead of like in the actual, the boss minigame this time around. So it makes things a little bit different for a change, and I think the actual course layouts might be a little bit slightly longer this time around, I'm assuming, for this matter. So even then, though, I have the same issue here ever since during the forms of the first encounter with that specific minigame, because, well, as you can tell, that you still need to accelerate with the analog stick with the nunchuck, of course, and you still need to aim yourself with the Wii remote in the corresponding directions and all that stuff. Seems a little bit still awkward at first because I keep on still used to with the skydiving sequences in The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, as well as a little brief in Journey forms of the other skydiving mini games. Well, usually one of them in Wii Sports Resort. So even then, that usually becomes now done and over with. So even then, and for the majority of the time, I guess I should probably mention right from the start though, that I don't think that we can able to change any sort of costumes for this point on, because even then we're now getting towards the end for the actual main Let's Play of this game. So even then, but then again, the only thing I'm probably not going to tackle through is, of course, the actual score mode, because, you know, we're going to go for the exact same minigames as before. And I suppose I forgot to mention about this ever since during forms of the beginning of the video, actually. Whoa, what was going on with the weird camera angle? What is going on with the weird camera angle? Oh, I have no idea why I just keep on shifting like that. But anyway, let's move on to the next minigame. Bunnies Have Natural Rhythm Part 2, where it's like the same thing, except there are some slight differences. For one, we need to beat this minigame within 50 seconds this time around, or lesser than 50 seconds. And second, this particular tough guy right here, as you can see on the background, that he now decided able to actually just to distract you by simply turn off the music every time you activate your, you know, the radio stations and stuff like that. So this makes this a little bit trickier for you, but honestly it's not too shabby, it's not too difficult either. The only time it's pretty difficult is the fact that we need to avoid this tough guy, because even then, every time, whenever he touches you, you will get hit. So even then, luckily we do have 3 units of health, so expecting that would make things a little bit comfortable for ourselves. And I have no idea why my Wii remote is acting out pretty funny all of a sudden. So yeah, this is what I mean, that if you somehow get hit by that tough bunny or the tough rabbit right there, again, I'm not exactly sure what his name was, to be honest with you, because even then, I haven't really played that much of the first game, that much in comparison to the sequels, for that matter. Specifically, my favorite games of all time, or one of my favorite games of the entire Rabbids trilogy, along with Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle, is, of course, Rayman Raving Rabbids 2. Well, despite with some quick cash-in from the start, but then again, we'll talk more about it whenever we get onto that Let's Play at some point during the summer. But anyways, here's the next minigame right here, which is Bunnies Like to Stuff Themselves Part 2, where it's basically, it's kind of like the same thing on Part 1, except we now need to aim for 350 points, because, as soon as you're able to draw out the actual line, as you can see right there, or they draw the exact same shape, every once in a while is the fact that the actual drawing out line will start to disappear for about a few seconds notice, unless if you memorize the actual image. So as long as you know what you're doing, you should be alright, especially noticeable with the accuracy with the Wii Remote and stuff like that, which I gotta give this particular minigame some credit for. So, but regardless of everything else though, it's not too hard and not too shabby either, especially how much I had a frustrating time in during multiple attempts in the day number 14 dance minigame. I mean, good lord. Why did they expect to make things a little bit harder for ourselves for this rate? But anyway, let's just go ahead and just draw out the actual watermelon, and also we need to draw out the apple if it's anything possible. So even then, we can expect things to be matter for this point. So even then, we'll I don't know if we can able to draw out the actual chicken or meat, because I'm presuming that the actual candle's already burned out, meaning it's like time has been gone out. So, but yeah, you get the idea for that little solution for that point. So even then, we've now actually unlocked the final boss minigame gate, so that way we can able to go in here to take on the forms of the final minigame of this entire Rayman Raving Rabbids game. But before we take onto that final ultimate challenge, we need to take on the forms of the final dance minigame. And then, if you ever think about it, that if what happens if you do manage to able to actually complete every single of those mini-games, including the actual dance mini-games. Well, we'll explain more about it later. And I think this is the only mini-game. Bunnies are fantastic dancers. It's the only dance mini-game able to only feature 3 parts. So relatively speaking, we once again come across into this very, very cool music, if you can clearly tell. But except to make things a little bit harder, actually kind of think about it though, it's actually rather easy compared to the forms of how it does it on day 14, because you have to do the ridiculous amount of timing with all these Rabbids patterns and stuff. Although this particular minigame might play out exactly like how it did on the previous dancing minigame that we did done in day 14, except, well, I'm very glad that we got that particular music in the background, because I'm not a big fan of the previous minigame song that we did manage to dance through, just because I'm not exactly a huge fan of the actual, the tone of the actual music, to be honest here. That again though, is my different kind of scenario. So either way though, that's how it goes basically. So let's go ahead and just keep on ranking up some more points, as you can see, and yeah, everything else could be more relative and every will be. Though of course I need to replay that game on my own time so that I can able to actually just to experience the whole entire thing for myself, so far so good anyway, without any sort of mistakes around here, despite with all this timing issues, if you can clearly tell. And yeah, we did manage to reach 750 points like no problem, unlike in day 14 where I did have a lot of struggling moments during the actual failed attempts that I sort of managed to cut off, so because I don't want to let you guys able to actually sift through the actual failed attempts in joining forms of so many mini-games, if you can clearly tell, including the of course my least favorite mini-games ever, which is of course you try to have to carry the pig to the actual maze where you never know if it's going to be safe or not, so but that's how it goes basically for the actual sake of the actual mini-game selections of how this game offers us to. So even then though, now we're on to the final section right here, right now. So hopefully it should make things a little bit easier for ourselves, especially how the fact that the actual pattern on this is actually pretty easy in my eyes. So even then though, that concludes every single of the dancing mini-games. So all in all, I did have a good time, except in day 14, just because of how the fact that day 14 could go all over the place in terms of timing and the pacing and everything. So even then though, yeah, that's as far as I can usually just try to say about this for the most part. And ladies and gentlemen, we are now moving on to the final minigame of this entire game. But before we can able to enter here, however though, after when you complete all of the actual normal minigames, you get yourselves a gold cow trophy, which, it was an alright reward, but then again though, we'll explain more about it whenever we get onto the actual ending conclusion of this. So, here we go folks, the final minigame on day 15, and also the final minigame of the entire game. Bunnies aren't scared of the dark, meaning this is the final shooting range minigame, and also that this might be the 10th baby glow box that we can able to save. So even then though, despite we've actually ignored, you know, 5 minigames or something like that. So this will actually be the last, and the final shooting range minigame of this entire game, as I said before. So here we go, let's take on the forms of the final few sets of Rabbids, and eventually we'll males are able to save, not only for the sake of the actual baby glow boxes, or one of the final baby glow box, and also they will might actually retrieve the final plunger before we're able to actually just well, just to escape the actual, the Rabbids Coliseum and stuff like that. So either way though, unlike the forms of how it does it on the handheld versions, mainly with, the Game Boy Advance version, as well as the Nintendo DS version, the final boss wasn't, going to be exactly one of those, Rabbids robots. It was actually, you know, with that, particular tough, Rabbids that we've always come across into in this game, specifically in the console version, apparently he was actually kind of nice to me for some reason. Whilst compared to the forms of the handheld version, specifically the ones I'm on about is the DS version, he becomes the final boss in the DS version of the game. I'm not exactly sure on the Game Boy Advance version for sure, just because I haven't really looked onto more depth into it on the Game Boy Advance platformer game, because I definitely heard about some numerous bugs or glitches in the Game Boy Advance release of Rayman Raving Rabbids because of the forms of some weird collision detections or something, but even then, that's a discussion for another time. But for now, let's go ahead and just keep on shooting. Just keep on shooting those dang bunnies, or rabbits, as what they tend to call it in that. So yeah, as the final mini game on this particular game is concerned, basically it takes place on the actual Rabbids home base. So, excuse me. Because as a result, this is the final frontier, so we can then know that makes it a little bit obvious for that specific solution. So, along your way, you're going to come across into those bombs that like to roll around all the time, and I suggest you're able to get rid of the rolling bombs before you're able to actually proceed, before you're able to actually look after your health bar, as far as I'm aware. So, I suppose the final thing I just want to mention about something is the fact that the Xbox 360 version of this game, in addition to having yourselves the unique loading screens and stuff like that, they also managed to include some exclusive minigames in the 360 version. Specifically, there's one involves around rock, paper, scissors, and also one is actually based off from the actual cow throwing minigame, but mixed in together with basketball at the same time. And I think that's the only minigames I can think of. Let me know in the comments below of how the fact that there are some other Xbox 360 exclusive minigames. You know, it's kind of like the same thing for how it does it in Rio, for the video game version of Rio that is based off of the movie Rio, that they managed able to include the exclusive minigames in the Xbox 360 version, whilst compared to the rest of the other console versions like the PlayStation 3 and the Wii version, they did manage to have themselves the exact same amount of those minigames, whilst the forms of the DS version, it might actually play out very differently compared to the console version. So, but yeah, that's just how it goes when it comes to likely with certain party games these days. But either way though, that's how it goes basically. So, I suppose another thing I'd like to discuss upon is the fact that one thing I actually do really appreciate it because of how the fact that recently we've now got ourselves Mario Golf for the Nintendo 64 as in the original cartridge version of that specific game. One thing that's kind of cool about that game is the fact that much like in Super Smash Bros., they can able to actually change the different color schemes in every single playable characters between, I would say most likely Mario characters. I'm not exactly sure about the humans characters, or the human characters I should say, but then again though, I'll research it for myself to see if there are some, if the actual some parts have been true or not, so. But anyways, here we go with the actual final fight against with the Rabbids robots that has been hung around in the center a whole lot. So even then, just like before, that usually it's gone all autopilot. That's because I'm saying that because even then, still we have to come across into a lot of Rabbids, as you can see right there. I don't know if this might actually be the second longest shooting range stage, because this is obviously the longest shooting range minigame which actually takes place in day 10, so I guess that might make it a little bit obvious for that specific in terms of length and what have you, but I'm more concerned that this will have to be one of the second longest. Well, because the only reason being for that is because this is the final frontier. But yeah, that's how it goes basically with all this this minigames in mind. Just gonna have to keep on shooting those Rabbids before you move along, and you can also just manage to, oh yeah, we're able to distract most of the Rabbids to able to actually get on with the groove. So hopefully we would able to distract them and also just try to shoot them with the actual plunger of all things. And here's the final baby glow box, as you can see, but of course we need to take on this particular Rabbid robot first, after realizing to keep on reloading the actual same amount of ammo for the actual plunger. Although I could able to try to finish him off with the final plunger, but either way, I'm just only gonna do that for the sake of time, to just make things safe for ourselves. And there we go, folks. That pretty much takes care of the final minigame of the entire game, and also that pretty much concludes day 15. So either way, we're able to actually expect to get ourselves the final plunger in the game, even including the forms of the 15th plunger at the same time. So even then though, no need able to play the actual the mini games again, because after when you complete day 15, in addition to having ourselves the final time seeing this screen as you can see right there, I don't think there's any much, I don't think we've got anything else to it for this point. Sorry for the lack of dialogue for this point. Of course, that was the final time we're going to be seeing that particular scene, because as you can see, we can't able to open a door for this point, because, well, aside from being able to interact with certain stuff, with the costumes, as I mentioned earlier, and also the jukebox, they can able to listen up to, 8 different songs, if I recall from that, but I'm probably not going to play that much of it though, because it will able to include copyright license, so even then though, we're might as well able to just leave it up to that. Oh, this particular song, I'm not overly keen on that one. So, anyways, when you're done with that, for the majority of the actual mini games, you can able to actually hit on to sitting on a toilet, so that way you can able to look back on the forms of the replay mode. So basically, what the replay mode, as you can see, that allows you to able to actually reselect the exact same mini games again. So you can do it if you want. But honestly, I'm just mainly just gonna able to actually end this story mode off, just for the sake of the, like, well, we did manage to able to gather all of these plungers, so even then, as soon as you're able to grab all the plungers, then I think we might actually have enough time to get out of this place. So yeah, we did manage to able to escape out of all these places of all things. So in the end, Rayman just managed to able to break free, while at the same time that he do realizes the fact that he accidentally left without taking back the actual baby glow box. So as a result, yeah, it looks like the Rabbids might able to actually just utilize the actual baby glow box after all, to able to actually just use them in any other mini games to top it off. So yeah, and in the end though, that Rayman just managed to jump onto the Rabbids hole, and as a result he got stuck. So as a result, yeah, I don't think he can able to get out anytime soon until the sequel. So even then though, spoiler warning. So anyways, what's my final thoughts of Rayman Raving Rabbids as far as in the first game in the series, in terms of the Rabbids series as a result? It's not bad. I mean, usually it doesn't really age well for me for my book, because the only thing it's like doesn't age well for me compared to the sequels, and that was the fact that, well, first of all, let's get to the positive things out of the way. As far as the actual story concept, it is alright. I mean, usually, relatively speaking, I really appreciate about the fact that they're trying to able to actually just make the story based off from Rayman 4 prototype. Like, let the Rabbids trying to conquer the entire thing. But except the fact that, well, it's basically a minigame compilation rather than just like an action-adventure game, unlike the handheld counterparts on the Nintendo DS as well as the Game Boy Advance, but that's besides the point. And also the introduction to those Rabbids, they look kind of cool at first in the beginning portion, but until in 2010 all the way up to 2016 gets pretty much downhill. Whilst it does manage to go back good again during the forms of, you know, obviously Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle came around, that I found the Rabbids to be quite enjoyable to able just to sit through for those, you know, comedy and stuff, because even then though, that makes it so much more surprising. So, and also another thing is the fact that the graphics themselves do look good for its time. However though, it doesn't really age well for my part, because the only thing is questionable thing about it is the fact that it just becomes almost like pretty rushed. Like for instance, like, I don't know, something about with the forms of the actual time development or something like that. Or maybe it's probably because of how the fact that, well, it does certainly manage to able to get its actual starting career for the Rabbids series basically. But right now, as in the forms of, well, as far as in the first game in the series, and also, the controls might take a while to get used to, especially that you have to constantly need to able to utilize the nunchuck for the majority of some stuff, mainly with certain mini games that requires you to flick the nunchuck at all times, likely due to the fact that this is all usually forms of the early days of the Nintendo Wii with motion controls. And also the actual soundtrack I found is a very good stuff, and even then though, that's yeah, that's as far as I can usually say about it. The gameplay itself is not that bad either, it's just basically you have to go through all these mini-game compilations and stuff like that. That's all I can really say, all things considered. The only bad thing about the game though is the fact that sometimes I feel like the development cycle with, well, I don't know about that, but to be more accurate, some of these mini games go pretty okay. Well, some of them can go pretty much go to, well, in a dumpster fire. Like, for instance, I'm not a big fan of the Pick Maze mini game because it's all random and luck based at times, and even especially noticeable with the actual Day 14's Dawn's sequence. And finally, perhaps most notably, is the fact that, well, despite these story modes might take about a few hours to complete, but apart from everything else though, it's usually just goes in a shorter length or something like that, depending if you're trying to be fast or if you're trying to be more successful or what have you. But either way though, that's how it goes basically. So either way, as far as everything else I'd like to say about this, all in all, it doesn't sort of age well for me. I mean, usually it's a good start for the actual Rabbids series, especially noticeable how he becomes popular these days now. Especially they just, recently, during it back in 2007, they made a sequel to the game, which we'll probably talk more about it whenever we get on to summer, as I said before. But anyways, this particular credit sequence goes a little bit too long for my taste, so you can either sit and watch for it, or you can just skip it. So let's watch the ending. And in this particular cutscene, Rayman still got stuck in a hole, but with sheep gathered around. So yeah, I guess that pretty much takes care of this particular Let's Play of the Rayman Raving Rabbids. So this is me, Silver the Hedgehog, from the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. If you're probably wondering, to get the 100% completion of this game, you must be sure you need to play all of the mini games. So yeah, that's as far as I can say about it. So yeah, thank you so much guys for watching. I certainly enjoyed the game, and I'm sure most people already enjoyed this. So see you then. Bye.